We're going to go across to Tel Aviv. France 24's Noga Tarnopolsky is standing by for us. Noga, you were listening to Donald Trump's speech from the city's Hostages Square. I'm curious about how it was received where you were, because, of course, Donald Trump has become a sort of hero figure in the country, not so much Israel's prime minister. So I'm curious of how the phrase when he turned to Israel's president and called on him to pardon Israel's prime minister over those corruption charges he's facing. How was that received where you were?
Well, not very well. And in fact, the very first time when President Trump mentioned Netanyahu and asked him to stand up to be applauded, this whole square here booed as loud as in the Knesset they were cheering. I do want to note that the Prime Minister's party, the Likud, had filled the Knesset with political activists. So it wasn't just, dignified clapping from the members of parliament. It was really kind of raucous political activists and followers of the Prime Minister was screaming out, Bibi, Bibi, his nickname. It got kind of the flavor of a political rally in the Knesset. It was absolutely not appreciated here. As much as everyone, I think, here is very grateful to Trump, the perception here across the board is that without Donald Trump twisting Netanyahu's arm, these hostages that we're seeing return to Israel now after more than 2 years would not be back.
And Noga, we had some confusion a little earlier. We thought that Benjamin Netanyahu would be going to Sharm el-Sheikh for this meeting. Turns out he is not going because of a Jewish holiday. Also, it would have been a bit awkward, not just for Netanyahu to come face-to-face with the Palestinian president, but also so many European leaders who he's been bad-mouthing after they went ahead and recognized Palestinian statehood.
Yes, Delano, all of this twisty story happened in less than an hour. This is a really major diplomatic summit. It's the summit that is established to, I hope you can hear me.
It is loud, I can hear you, but go ahead.
The noise that you hear. Okay, let me just explain. The noise, these eruptions of noise that you hear is because some of the hostages are overflying the square in helicopters, and the crowd is trying to be loud enough for them to hear them. We hear the choppers. But let me return to your question. Prime Minister Netanyahu pulled a very shrewd, political maneuver. He was being slammed in Israel for being almost a pariah leader, for being the only leader connected to this war who was not invited to this very important summit in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, hosted by President Trump. And President Trump, upon landing, in fact, did invite Prime Minister Netanyahu. They drove together to Jerusalem, a brief drive. What then happened, this was and so Prime Minister Netanyahu was no longer perceived as a pariah, he hopes, but he didn't want to be put in that awkward situation that you described, having to shake hands with the Palestinian president, who he has referred to as a terrorist. And so he backed out and he blamed it on a Jewish holiday. It's a political maneuver.
And what is next, I'm curious, for the Prime Minister? Because I know domestically it's going to be hard for him, but now that this war is over, doesn't he still have to answer questions about the October 7th attacks?
He extremely much has to answer questions about the October 7th attacks that, let's all remember, followed a very controversial doctrine he put into place against the advice of Israeli intelligence chiefs, which was to transfer hundreds of millions of dollars to Hamas in Gaza in an aim to weaken the Palestinian Authority, the same Palestinian Authority whose president he would have met in Sharm el-Sheikh had he gone to that summit. Prime Minister Netanyahu has refused to allow for the establishment of a national commission of inquiry as Israeli law obligates him to do. All along, he's managed to maneuver, always with the explanation that war was still on. So he might have a more difficult time now making that claim, but he will try to still stave off that committee because he doesn't want, under any circumstances, to be investigated or for his government to be investigated.